Welcome to Syntax. Today we've got the history of syntax. We realize we've been doing this podcast for a long time, and very early on in the podcast we did kind of our origin stories where we told people about ourselves, but we've never really either followed that up or kind of explained the process of syntax. You know, I was on someone's live stream last week, and they're like, how did that even start? You know, it's been around for a while. So we thought, let's give you a little history of syntax, of where we started, how we met, and what did we do over the years to get to where syntax is today.
Yeah, because a lot of you may have found this channel recently, now that we've been publishing a lot more, or maybe you found the podcast over the years, and, well, you might not know all of the whole bits and stories. So, Wes, do you want to kick it off with a little bit of, pre-syntax, what you were doing?
A little bit of lore?
A little bit of lore on the Wes Boss story.
All right, so back around 2015, Scott and I were both making web development tutorials in general. And Scott was publishing quite a bit to YouTube at the time. I was doing my own courses. I did blogging and YouTube as well, but not as heavily as Scott was. How we initially met was Scott had published a course called React for Beginners, and I had a course called React for Beginners, and I said, hey, could you not?
Yeah.
And thankfully, he was really cool about it, and he's like, oh, yeah, no problem. And he renamed it to, I think, React for Everyone, which I was really happy about. And I was like, oh, by the way, I love your stuff. I had taken Scott's Sketch course at the time, so I knew who he was, but I had never crossed paths before that. So that was our sort of first introduction. And then maybe a couple of months after that, I had this idea of creating what's called a mastermind. And a mastermind group is where you get together with people who are in similar businesses as you and sort of just talk shop about what's working, what's not working, what are your goals, keep each other accountable. I was like, hey, Scott, do you want to do that? We also had Joel from Egghead. We had Josh Owens, who was running some Meteor. It's called the Meteor Dojo or something like that. By the way, I ran into him on TikTok the other day. Now he's doing 3D printing stuff.
Cool.
So he's in a different industry now. But basically, we talked for once every 2 weeks for a year and just gave each other tips. And it was very helpful. And then after about a year, we kind of got what we wanted from it. But Scott and I had gotten along really well. We're like, dude, we should start a podcast. There's probably something else here. I really enjoyed hanging out with Scott every week and talking. And we're like, man, we have a really good back and forth, good rapport, similar sense of humor, kind of in the same stages of life as well. So I was like, hey, you want to start a podcast?
Yeah, and it's funny. So pre all of that, I was doing, like you had mentioned, a lot of YouTube, and I had started YouTube in 2012. And there's actually Honeypot did a little mini documentary about my career that goes into a lot more details on some of that stuff. But, the YouTube channel for me was just a slow growth over time, where I was publishing 9 videos a week for a couple years and just really, really working hard on the YouTube channel itself. And Wes had really done a great job of making really high-end premium tutorial content, and what I was making was not that. I mean, it was 9 videos a week. You can't really do high-end content at 9 videos a week. I was more or less coming home from work and recording, just talking about what I was doing all day at work. So when we had that mastermind, Wes was bringing a different angle to the same thing, and I was bringing a lot of YouTube expertise. In 2015 at the time, the channel was in the middle of its rise. It took a long time. I'll post a link of the chart itself for the growth of the YouTube channel over time. But, it was just a long, steady growth of YouTube. And, man, so there was just a lot of domain-specific knowledge I had about what makes for effective YouTube, especially SEO stuff, because I was living and dying by the SEO game on YouTube at that point.
Yeah,
but
you're just cranking it out. I remember one of the first things I asked you in the mastermind was, how do you record so much content? You just you're cranking it out. And it was good. I was taking them myself before I even knew you.
Yeah, and on top of that, I was doing videos for, like, I did sketch videos for their website. I was doing
Yeah.
videos for Meteor at some point. I was doing videos for Figma when they were still a tiny little company. So, I was doing even more than what I was publishing onto YouTube. But for me, it was all just like sit down and a little bit less polished, just talk about what I'm doing, explain through it, record a 9 to 10 minute video here and there. But either way, the mastermind group for me was so helpful because I was trying to turn what was a YouTube channel that I was not supporting myself with. Believe it or not, at the time, you get 200,000 followers or whatever on YouTube. That still doesn't pay your rent, right? So I was trying to pivot from working full-time as a developer and doing this stuff in my free time to teaching full-time. And so Wes was like instrumental in like helping me turn my platform into something that could actually support me, which, for a little while, it definitely was very tough. And I had to pick up a job here and there extra because I just could not break into it. But Wes's expertise really helped out. We had been doing that mastermind group for a while, and we had talked kind of casually about doing a podcast. But I did find that we created this initial planning document April 16th, 2016. And inside of the initial planning document was a lot of things from the name syntax at that point, because we had a bunch of other, like, some of them were bad, some of them were decent names. We had a big old list of potential names. We just kind of decided what the vibe was going to be at this point. And we even hashed out a whole bunch of outlines for some potential episodes that we wanted to do. We decided that we maybe want to kick off like 3 episodes. We'd even come up with the term sick pick at that point. Sick tips. We had a bunch of other ones that we didn't end up using, like Pound It. That was a good one. Yeah, we didn't keep Pound It. I don't know why we didn't keep Pound It.
I can't believe, we were just like thinking of like how do we make this not boring? And we're just kind of coming into the idea of like audio, drama mama, moments, tasty treats, easy breezy. We never actually ended up using hot take time machine, hot takes from years past, which is hilarious because this was almost 10 years ago at the moment.
Yeah.
And is there a list of other possible names on here as well?
I don't know. I couldn't find that.
Man, I think I got it. Let me search one sec.
Either way, we knew from pre-recording the podcast that what we wanted to do out of this was have it be a departure from dry tech podcasts. We wanted it to be fun. We wanted it to be very just a little bit more exciting, because I think that's how both of us operate. We're kind of both high energy people. So we really just wanted to have something that represented that high energy nature that both of us tend to do. So that was really the core of it. We also both had a lot of experience listening to podcasts. I had been an avid podcast listener. I had a huge list of things that really bug me about people's podcasts. We both had all the tech and audio stuff, so we knew that wasn't going to be a problem. So we'd made all this stuff in April of 2016 and just did nothing with it. We pretty much just sat on it. I was working at a job, and it was kind of consuming a lot of my life at that point, and it was just really tough. Wes was doing his courses. We had this idea, and again, April 2016, we just sat on it. It wasn't until, this isn't even it. I found a tweet from November 30th, 2016, where I said, 2017, syntax, let's make it happen. We did not end up making it happen in November of 2016. It took us until May, July, June of 2017 before we actually kicked it off.
It just goes to show that actually doing something, ideas are a dime a dozen, right?
Yes. Yeah.
But actually getting up and doing it is the part that makes it happen. Obviously it is, but man, it took us a long time to actually just go ahead and start recording it. And I think that was just because there's a lot going on in life, focusing on courses and whatnot. But once we started getting rolling on it, I'm like, man, we should have did this 2 years ago.
Totally.
By the way, I did find the list of possible names for syntax, and it says, originally I had wanted to call my own podcast Boss Sauce.
Oh, I love it.
I don't even remember that.
Oh, that's great.
It should be fun/funny and enough to grab people's interest. Most of these are garbage, but I'm just spitballing. So my ideas for the podcast were code, ! Also, the second one was just code, exclamation mark. So 2. The Fun Dev Show.
Oh, yeah.
So stupid. Dev Sauce. That's still pretty good. Sauce.tips. That would have not been a good podcast name. Web Sauce. Blockscope. I think Blockscope is probably my favorite second one. Dev Life. The Code Life. Well, those are all of the ideas that we had there. And then we finally, I forget, Syntax is not even on there. I'm not sure how we ended up landing on Syntax.
We had more names than this because I clearly remember one of them was Code Time with Wes and Scott. And I'm trying to find that list.
It was on the next page. Here we go. I had to go back in like history and find these in Google Docs history. So Async, Code Time with Wes and Scott, Time Code, Code Flow.
Okay. Yeah. Syntax is the best one. I think we kind of agreed on it. It's a short word. It's a cool looking word. It represents what we do really well.
I still very much, I love the Syntax brand, and everything around it. And like we've morphed it over the years, but it still is, it's the same logo and it's the same name. And I don't know that I've ever liked something that long where I'm like, that's a good name, nice, short, crisp name. And like every other coding podcast that's come out since then is a take on it. It's just one word about coding.fm.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It was so fun. And then one thing that happened, I was working this job at a startup and they were really abusive. And like as a developer there, it was a really tough work environment. And I've told this story before in the past, but it was the week of the birth of my first child. And it was like a Sunday at 8:00 on the week my child was born. And they were harassing me. And I mean this in the most aggressive, rude possible type of way about a broken feature in pre-alpha software. And it was just like so brutal to me. And I pretty much quit the next day. And at that point, I didn't have an income beyond like level up tutorials, which, was tight at that point. And yeah, I think both of us, it was the right time. We had all this stuff down and it was the absolute right time for me. So we just decided to make it happen and start recording. The initial plan was that we recorded a teaser episode and then we recorded 3 additional episodes. So that way we would have 3 kind of ready to go as a buffer. And the initial plan was to just do 1 a week. That was the whole thing. We're going to do 1 episode a week. It's going to be on Wednesdays, I believe. And I think so. And it was going to come out every Wednesday.
Wednesdays, yeah.
Yeah.
July 5th, 2017, we published the first episode on React tools. And this was talking about like where to host React, all of the different like libraries around it, right? I'm just looking at the show notes here. Cloudflare, Next.js, GraphQL, GraphCool.
Yep, GraphCool, which is now Prisma.
Yes, that's seen several. Meteor, Blaze, React Storybook. Oh man, we were early on the React Storybook, man.
Yeah, it was still React Storybook. That's crazy that it's been around that long. My son was born at the end of May, and this first episode came out early June. So you can tell like just how fast that turnaround was for me personally to go from I'm working this job full time to now we're doing this podcast. So for me, it really needed to hit, and it hit. I think the initial reaction was great. It helped that Wes had a massive Twitter audience, and at that point, I think my YouTube it was like 200,000 or something like that. Maybe at that point,
it was fairly large.
Yeah. So it was I think a great initial reaction. I think we did exactly what we wanted it to do. And at that point, not a lot of people knew my name, which was funny because like I had been on YouTube for so long, but I didn't put myself on camera that much. I was the Level Up Tuts guy. And like, I didn't really even say my name. I wasn't like, this is Scott from Level Up Tuts. It's like, I didn't want to burden people with having to spell my last name. So it was like, at that point, it's Wes and the Level Up Tuts guy. That was the show.
Yeah, that was really nice that we had existing audiences that we're able to push people towards. I think it's a little easier now to get sort of like an algorithm hit.
Yeah, totally.
And be noticed. But at the time, it was like, discoverability for podcasts was extremely low, and we were able to just simply say, hey, we got this thing, and push people out to it. And then just luckily from day one, we had a fairly sizable audience that were tuned in. I don't know that we would have kept it going for so long if we hadn't like got all the feedback, because it's, you hear from people and they email you and they tweet at you saying, hey, I love this episode, or you got this wrong. And I love that part about doing it, because you feel part of the community.
Yeah, people let us know right away that they liked it and enjoyed it. And because of that, we ended up getting, sponsorship pretty early on in the game. I don't remember what our first sponsored episode was. I think
it was Delicious Brains had a plugin, WP Migrate DB Pro, which I was a heavy user of at the time, because I was doing a lot of, maybe not then, but in my WordPress days, I used that in every single website. And we got an email from Brad, and he's like, hey, can we sponsor this thing? And I had not even thought about that. Like the podcast was just a medium for us to promote our own stuff, but we had not thought about taking on external money. But we're like, sure. Yeah. And I forget how much it was. I think it was like $700 or something like that for the first episode.
Good money. Yeah.
So it was good money.
That was our 4th episode. So we had batched those first 3 episodes. And by the time we recorded a 4th episode, we had Delicious Brains as a sponsor. So shout out Delicious Brains for being the first and really doing that. And for me personally, like, this was pre anybody getting signed to do a podcast deal. Podcasts existed. Podcasts were popular, but they weren't like a career. You didn't hear a lot of people saying, I'm a podcaster,
No, they weren't on Spotify at the time. No, it was much more of like a tech thing, in even 2017 was not early. I'd been listening to Leo Laporte for 10 years before that. Like I literally had podcasts on my iPod.
Yeah. 2011 plus. Yeah, totally.
But yeah, it was amazing. And then once that came out, we started getting emails from all kinds of companies, which I now realize that these tech companies that are trying to get in front of developers, it's kind of a hard thing to do, because you can't just use regular mediums. Like you can't sponsor like Joe Rogan with like a developer tooling company or something like that.
Yeah, totally.
So these companies were hungry to try new avenues. And also, like at the time, the display ads were starting to tank, and these developer companies were looking for new areas to advertise on and to get in front of devs.
Yeah. And who one of our first bigger sponsors was FreshBooks, who then continued to sponsor us forever and ever and ever. So shout out to FreshBooks for also really believing in syntax really early on. I mean, they sponsored episode number 7. Let's see. They sponsored episode number 6. Yeah. So they started really early with us. And that really made it a lot more viable, besides the fact that we were getting a lot of listens and everything like that.
Yeah, I think companies like FreshBooks have like scanners, and they look for new podcasts, because I think what happens is, if a new podcast comes up, they get on it early, and if it pops, then they get really good money, value for their money.
Yeah, they did get good value, because we were trending on the technology charts at that point already. So it worked out pretty well for us. And we just kind of kept that going until we decided that we wanted to add another episode, because we were doing so much, but we didn't want to have another long episode. So that's where we came up with the idea of doing the Hasty and the Tasty Treat, where the Hasty Treat would be a short episode on a quick topic, because sometimes we were finding there was all these things we wanted to talk about, but it would have been like totally wrong for us to talk about them for an hour, right? It would have felt like we were just artificially dragging it out, which you don't want to do, right? So
or if you group them together, like 3 topics that have nothing to do with each other, group them together into a single show, didn't really make sense.
It didn't make any sense. So that's why we came up with the whole Hasty and Tasty Treat. Next thing you know, we're publishing 2 episodes a week, and Yeah, the whole time I'm trying to turn level up tutorials into business, and you are still pushing out your courses, still working on that stuff, and like, recording a lot of content in addition to the podcast. The podcast was still like a 1 day of the week thing for us, and probably remained a 1 day of the week for us until somewhat recently.
When we hit that like second episode that we added, it was partially because like we had stuff to talk about, and partially because we had more people wanting to sponsor than we had room for. So we're like, yeah, we'll add the second show. That'll be kind of neat. That worked out really well, and it started to become like I would say a significant source or a good source of income. Alongside my courses as well. That was kind of fun. I hated chasing all the sponsors and having calls with them and whatnot. And it was a tricky thing. A lot of people always say like, why don't you just farm it out to like some sort of company, but
an agency. There's a lot of people trying to do that for us. There was a lot of people being like, we will manage all your ads. We'll do this, we'll do that. And it's like, all right, but then you're taking a massive chunk of it.
Yeah, they wanted to take like a quarter, like a 25%. And then also the reason I think we were making more money per listener than most podcasts were because we had the developer audience. And the people who were sponsoring, like a Sanity as an example, they were partially sponsoring because they had a good audience, but they were also sponsoring because Scott and I would get to know their product and talk about it. Like I still talk about Sanity to this day.
Yeah, totally.
And because I know it so well because of all those ad reads, and it's an awesome product. So it was like a thing where like you had to really do it yourself. Because you had to get on the calls, you had to try, you had to build something with it, because they wanted you to talk about their product from a first hand and not just like run a MeUndies robotic ad read. And everybody loved them. People still talk about the transitions Scott would do from the show into the actual ad reads.
Yeah, you know what? It's funny. The transitions to the ad reads were something that I did right away. I don't know like how I got to be decent at it, but I did pick that up like from another podcast. I don't know if you know this. There was a hockey podcast, Marek vs. Wyshynski, and Greg Wyshynski always did really good ad transitions, and I always thought that was very funny. So I decided to do it, but I don't remember the first time I did that, if I did it right away or whatever, but it was always a thing that I wanted to do and aspired to do, and kind of had never a problem with it. I don't know why. It just kind of came naturally to me. So that was always kind of just initially part of that, but it did come from Greg Wyshynski, so shout out to Greg. And
then right around middle of 2019, I'm just looking it up, we decided to start doing interviews, which was our Friday episode. I had never wanted to do interviews because I feel like I wasn't good at them. I feel like I'm still not great at talking, but people were like, oh, can I come on? Can you get this person on? And I was like, it's not really an interview podcast, but we decided to kind of go for it. We had Sasha Grief and Cortland Allen on previously just to kind of talk to them. But it looks like our very first actual interview was Sarah Swaden talking about SVGs and front-end UI and CSS, which was a very good episode.
Do you know why that was? I was out. I don't remember why I was out. I was sick. I was unavailable. For some reason, I was out.
Really?
And that was the first episode I missed. And you were like, well, I'll find somebody else. So you found Sarah to fill in for me, which is how that came about. But I remember that was really great, and it worked out really well. I mean, obviously, Sarah's great. But also, we did a live show in there before we decided to do interviews full time because...
Oh, you're right.
Yeah, episode 90 was our first live show. And that coincidentally was the first time that Wes and I had ever met in person, given that at the time, I was living in Colorado, and I still am, Wes living in Toronto. We had never met in person. We'd probably been in very similar circles and rooms, just never met before until then. And it was pretty great. We did the live show, and I think it was really hilarious. I think that was like the one thing that we wanted to get out of the first live show, was to have it be as fun as the show or more fun than the show in a different format. So we came up with a bunch of games. In the very first live show, we did spicy tips where we did like spicy takes. We did this, that, or both, which was still to this day my favorite game that we do live, where I can't believe we came up with this for the first live show, which
Yeah.
was which was where we give you a word and you have to say if it's an NPM library or whatever this was. So for
Yeah,
instance,
it was like, is this a carbon fiber road bike or
yeah,
a package for modeling 3D shapes in the browser, or both? And
yes,
that was so much fun doing that. That was at Jamstack Conf in San
yeah.
Francisco.
Yeah. And then we also did Stumped, where we were asking questions for people in the audience. Oh, no, we were trying to stump each other.
Yes.
That was the one. We were trying to stump each other. We did overrated or underrated, where it was kind of rapid fire. And then we did a Q&A. It was a ton of fun. And shout out to the Netlify folks for throwing Jamstack Conf. That was like a great time. And it was just like I think it was a pretty sweet event for us because, again, we got to experiment with the format a little bit. But we also got to hang out, which was, I think, important for us.
Yeah. People were surprised that we had never met. We did, 90 episodes together?
90
and
episodes,
never
yeah.
met in person.
Been over a year of doing potting.
Yeah, people had thought we had known each other our entire life, which is why I was like, we clicked, and that's why the podcast did so well. Is we had a really good rapport, a really good back and forth, especially at the time that there was a lot of podcasts out there, and they were all snooze fests. They were highly technical, but had no personality, and I think that has changed a lot with YouTube. And like vlogging and like personalities becoming much more of a thing now. At the time, it was just like, I am an expert, therefore I will blog and conference talk and do a podcast on it. And now the entertainment value is so important alongside the actual learning things.
Yeah, that was pretty much it for a while. We did live shows here and there. We were getting invited to do that stuff. We were doing conference talks. We maintained the podcast. We were now doing 3 episodes a week. And yeah, it was just got into a really natural flow of things. It just kind of worked and didn't stop working. One thing that I really appreciate about you, Wes, and like the show that we've been able to do is that I don't think there's ever been a single time where I've been like, I gotta do the podcast, or I gotta talk to Wes. Like, no, I'm always stoked to talk to Wes. Like, I'm stoked to talk to him all the time. So, it's just a good vibe all around, and still
totally.
is.
People always ask that, like, hey, do you ever run out of stuff to talk about or whatnot? And like, some days it's hard to figure out what to talk about. And like, you got to put all the content together, like it's hard putting it all together, but the actual making it is very enjoyable, and it's always been like a fun highlight of my week as well, being able to record it and also just like share what it is that I'm working on and share what I know. It's a fun thing to be able to say, today we're talking about CSS variables, and you can just dive in, do all the research, figure out every little aspect of it, and then just deliver it in this tidy little neat package of an hour for somebody to passively consume.
And if you want to see all of the errors in your application, you'll want to check out Sentry at sentry.io/syntax. You don't want a production application out there that, well, you have no visibility into in case something is blowing up and you might not even know it. So head on over to sentry.io/syntax. Again, we've been using this tool for a long time and it totally rules. All right. Yeah, I do love diving deeply into a topic for a week and then getting to just fire hose that out in an episode. That was always just really, really super great. So I guess the next big thing, because we had been, really getting into that flow for a while, was getting acquired by Sentry. So, we often say on this podcast, this show is brought to you or presented by Sentry, those types of things. But Sentry was one of our longtime sponsors, and they would sponsor, 52 episodes a year kind of repeatedly. And we had a really great relationship with them. Wes had known Ben Vinegar over at Sentry for a long time. Did you know Kramer before? David Kramer?
Ben had got in touch with me before we even did the podcast, and he's like, hey, if you ever want to work together, let me know. And I had a Redux free course that was coming out. And I said, yeah, you want to like sponsor the Redux course? And they said, totally. So they paid me a bunch of money. I put one of the videos of the course was me integrating Sentry into the React app and showing how it works and whatnot. And that really worked well. And then when the podcast came along, they're like, hey, we want to sponsor this as well. And like immediately they're just like, how many episodes can we get? And they took as many as they possibly could, which I think they were a sponsor, 52 once a week for many, many years. And it was a great relationship because Sentry never sent us anything to say.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yes.
a couple times a year, they would drop us notes on new features that Sentry had and say, hey, like maybe this is some good talking points. But it was always just like, well, you use it, just let her rip, and we can kind of talk about it. And everybody always thought that was like felt really good coming from us. And yeah, it's always a really good relationship, which is why when they approached us, they're like, hey, we want to build this into something bigger. What do you think? Bring Syntax under the Sentry brand that you don't got to sell a whole bunch of ad spots, but also you can devote a lot more time to it. We can get you some people. Seemed like a pretty sweet proposition, and able to just like, because that was a frustrating part about running Syntax is that we spent probably a full day recording every week, and then we had like, I don't know, another half day running around doing sponsorship stuffs and talking with the editor, things like that. And it was quite a bit of work. And there was a lot of stuff that we wanted to do past that, but simply just did not have the time or resources.
Yeah, considering I was, at that time, we were recording Syntax one day a week, and then I was doing, 24 videos a month with Level Up tutorials. Mm-hmm. So it was, not even just 4 days a week. It was Saturdays and Sundays for me at that time, just grinding on creating tutorials. So for me, I was feeling very tired of doing that. It was very exhausting, and I still love making that content, but I'd really burnt myself out on how many videos I had agreed to do. And once I made that agreement with my customers, I can't go back on that. I can't say, no, I'm going to give you 10 videos a month or whatever. I'm going to keep working on them. Now, granted, we did bring in some third-party content creators at various points, and that was definitely the direction, but people really liked my content, so I didn't want to skimp out on that. So it was a lot of work for me. So when this came about, it was like, all right, now we can invest all of my time into Syntax. I can put that energy that I'm putting into my own tutorials into like a group effort instead of because I had a business. I had a couple people working for me and stuff at Level Up Tutorials, but it felt really great to be able to have all that be in Syntax. So in addition to like having a nice working relationship with Sentry, I had been using their product since before Syntax, long before, for just as a user. So I was very familiar with the product itself, and I'd always had great experiences with the team. So when we started chatting and they told us what they saw in it, and one of the big things that sold me on it was, we're not going to touch it unless you need our help. We're not going to tell you how to do it. We just want you to think bigger, and we'll give you the resources to do so. So that was a big selling point, because it's your baby. You have this whole brand. The last thing you want is Sentry to come in and say, make it purple. And it's like, well, okay.
Yeah. We've seen a lot of that happens a lot, right? And when we announced it, a lot of people were like happy, but cautious. And we're like, hopefully they don't ruin it,
Yes. Yeah.
And it was really nice after. It is when something you love gets acquired, you always think, oh, that's it. There it goes. They're going to start just cranking it, it's going to be low quality. It happens with everything except for us. So after a year of doing it, and when we launched, we'll talk about whatever, but people started saying, I'm so glad that they didn't ruin it.
Yeah, totally. And so that was
in
really
fact,
great.
We made it better. I should say that.
We made it a lot better.
Significantly better, because we were able to hire a producer, Randy, who made it look better and sound better, and it freed us up from doing a whole lot of stuff, right? And now we have a whole team. We'll talk about that in a sec, though.
Yeah. So a part of that was Level Up Tutorials was made free. You can utilize it now, levelup.video. It's available for a totally free resource for all of the courses that I made. So that was a whole part of it too. It's like, we're going to take on Level Up Tutorials and just make it free for the community, which was really admirable that they did that. They were like, we
Totally.
don't care about the money that Level Up Tutorials is bringing in. The goodwill is better for us to make it free. So the thing I got to work so hard on, and, I always felt bad about putting it behind a paywall, given that I released 1,000 videos on YouTube for free before I ever charged for anything. So it was like, I really wanted to give this stuff for free, but I could not live off of it that way. So it was really great that ended up happening. And Caitlin Bloom, who was the Level Up Tutorials marketing manager, she had been working for me for, I don't know, like a year and a half at that point, maybe a little bit longer. I was really grateful to her. She took a chance on me because, working for a single person at a business that is that's a risky move. So, shout out to Caitlin for having the faith that Level Up Tutorials was a good bet, and it paid off for her. She got to join Sentry. She got to join the syntax team, and she's now the syntax marketing manager, and she's just great. And so it was the three of us for a little bit, and Ben Vinegar kind of whipped us into shape at Sentry. He definitely got us working more like a team. Wes and I were a bit of we just do stuff,
Oh, yeah.
And
I'm a stallion, man.
Yeah,
you can't pen me in. I've never really had a job. I've always worked for myself. And I should say, I'm still part-time, however many hours a week, but the arrangement now is much more formal, we have team, we have to communicate and things like that. And I always tell my wife I'm a stallion, I just kind of let her rip and do what I want. And for the most part, that's still true. But Ben came in and sort of helped us figure out goals and what do you want to do and how do you hire somebody and all of that hard stuff, which I have zero experience in.
Yeah. I had been, as doing that stuff for Level Up Tutorials, I had no experience in it either besides what I was doing myself. Yeah. So it was really, really helpful for me to be able to have that kind of training and that kind of understanding. So the next step was to grow the team. What do we need? Well, we need somebody who can take on the producer role of just defining the video look, moving to video at all. Before this, we were just audio, and we hired Randy Rector for that, and he's just been a superhuman. He is just, completely everything you see graphics-wise and all that stuff. Audio, he's defined the entire visual aesthetic for the video of the podcast, and he's done it all without much, I don't know. I don't think I've ever told Randy, do this, do that, whatever. He just does. He's got great taste and does a great job. In fact, you can get that just from his YouTube channel because his stuff all looked great beforehand. And we knew bringing him in would be an easy transition for us. And it was. I mean, we were able to transition to video within weeks of him joining the program, actually probably a week of him joining the team. So,
yeah. He has fantastic taste. And that was one thing when we were trying to hire is we wanted someone to tell us what to do and not the other way around.
Yeah.
We don't just want someone to click the buttons and edit the thing. He obviously has those skills, but he more has he understands YouTube. He understands how to edit, timing. Man, go watch the latest, what is it? The reacting to the desks video on YouTube.
Yeah. Yeah.
He took 35 minutes of us yapping and cut it down to 18 minutes of just, and it feels so smooth. And I was telling Caitlin, I was unreal that he can take us yapping for so long and just make it so quickly cut, and it just flows really well. So just things like that. He's got excellent taste.
Yeah. So we moved the podcast to video, which is a big transition. My Baby, which was the Level Up Tutorials YouTube channel, converted into the Syntax channel. So the channel that you are watching this on, if you're watching it right now on YouTube, is formerly my YouTube channel, rebranded to be Syntax. You can go find probably all of my old videos on there as well, which is great because we had a big subscribership here already, and it's trying to revive a YouTube channel was quite a bit of work, and we needed to, bring people in. We had probably a good amount of what are dead subscribers, people who subscribed in the past that don't exist anymore. So it was definitely an opportunity for us to really grow in this space. And part of that was that we wanted somebody who's focused purely on making video content. That was one of our big things. We could have somebody who could, we can yap about projects on this show. We can talk about stuff, but we wanted somebody to go deeper and show you things. And neither of us had the time to do that, is really what it came down to. So that's why we went to hire a creator. And I would say that was a difficult job hunt. We had a ton of massively talented video creators interview and create stuff for us. And it was like emotionally difficult for me because I would have loved to hire so many people from that job hunt. But CJ stood out for being like very, very technically deep in a way that like you could throw anything at CJ and you felt like he'd be able to make a very well-made, technical, like reliable, honest video about whatever it was. And that's really what stood out for me. He just genuinely a smart and good dude.
That was really important to us as well. In the same way that like Randy can like edit video, Photoshop, turn the knobs on audio, and think about hooks for a TikTok. CJ does that for like understanding every single aspect of code, which is like not everyone, like Scott and I are web developers, you know, and we know a lot about server-side JavaScript and databases and caching techniques. And all the way on the other side, we know quite a bit about like front-end and CSS and animations and stuff like that. And we have a pretty wide breadth of what we cover. And CJ, I feel like he has even a deeper breadth on some of that stuff. You know, he actually has a computer science degree.
Yeah.
And then he's just like excellent at explaining how all of that stuff works as well.
And he's just a genuinely likable dude on top of all of that, you know, like
cool mustache.
Cool mustache. Yeah, you don't feel like he is trying to be like an influencer or like, you know what, it's like you don't feel like he's phony in any sort of way. The dude is who he is, and it's like such a positive thing to me. That's always a character trait I really enjoy. So adding CJ to the show is a huge value add for us. CJ had been doing his own stuff on Coding Garden. He had experiences live streaming. I had seen him doing live events in Denver around town. Perfect value add for us.
Another thing we touched on was the merch store. So one thing we've wanted to do forever is to have some sort of merch. I've done t-shirts once or twice myself. I've done stickers, but I've never had the ability to just like have stuff for sale all the time. And that was one of the things when we joined Sentry, is like, hey, can we do a merch store? Like I want to be able to do some really cool stuff. And right off the bat, when we joined, we gave away like 1,000 t-shirts or 600 t-shirts or something like that,
and skate decks and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, we got skate decks, we have basketballs, got some really cool hats. By the way, really cool hats coming, hoodies coming. Probably by the time you listen to this, the hoodie should actually be live at sentry.shop. So that was really cool, because just having the resources of somebody to figure out how this all works, and like we have a whole fulfillment place, you know, it's a lot of work doing that. And it's really nice having it all in place now.
Yeah, that's the best part about having a team here for this, is because it's like, yes, we could probably have done a bad job of getting a merch store by just accepting like one of the numerous requests we had over the years for like, we'll print your stuff and ship it for you. But so many of those things are just like bad quality, bad everything. And we just didn't have the ability and time to do it the right way. So that's why it was so helpful for Ben Vinegar to be like, hey, I'll take over the store. Now Caitlin Bloom is the point person on the store. It's like people have been able to really assist us in the ways that have made this whole thing so much better. We don't want to push out. We don't want to give you bad quality mugs and printed t-shirts or whatever. Take 5 minutes to make a photoshopped image and throw it onto a product. Like, I'm not into that.
Yeah, the print on demand stuff is not, it's actually getting pretty good, but it's not very fulfilling to do fun stuff. So we've been able to source some really neat stuff, like a basketball and a skateboard. Those are with the fingerboard in the custom box. We got some stickers coming pretty soon. I grew up doing merch for hardcore bands. That's like how I cut my teeth in this whole web development stuff. So being able to have that for coding is such a cool thing.
It's so cool. And from there, we've been doing some events. We've been doing syntax meetups. We've been showing up. In fact, it's very funny. The very first syntax like official meetup that we did, besides doing live shows, was the week that we flew to Toronto to discuss potential acquisition with Sentry. And Wes like tweeted out like minutes, like a few hours before we were going to do it. Hey, we're doing a
couple days. We're just like, hey, on a Monday night in Hamilton, not even in Toronto, we're doing like a meetup. And we had like probably 20, 25 people come out.
It was enough. Enough people. It was fun.
Super fun. I'd love doing those meetups. We're going to do a few more of them because it's great like actually hanging out with people that you've been conversing with online for years or weeks or never.
Totally. And it was great. A lot of people asking us why I'm there, which was a question I could not answer.
What did you say?
Oh, I don't remember.
I think it's like we were just doing some planning or something like that,
Yeah, we're doing something. But the most recent meetup we did in SF for GitHub Universe was incredible because Sentry helped us plan it. We got a great venue for it. We gave away a ton of stuff. A lot of people showed up, and it was just a blast.
Yeah, that was really fun. We've done quite a few. We did GitHub Universe as well. We did React Miami. We did a live show there as well. Some pretty fun stuff to doing over the years, and we've got a couple more coming up this year we're working on right now.
So that's the story thus far, and I think the plan from here forward is to continue to make this platform better. We want better shows. We want deeper quality. We want, stuff that isn't out there. The last thing we want is like just more disposable junk on YouTube. So for us, that is the big plan here, especially as we move more into video. Obviously, the audio podcast is not going anywhere, and we're going to continue to have that be just totally a viable way to consume syntax. We don't want to alienate any of the audio listeners or anything like that. But we'll be doing more on YouTube, as evidenced by our new Friday show. We've been doing like, we did the roasting desk setups, we did trivia, we did CSS
Speaking of
battles.
Disposable junk that we don't do, you should watch the one where we react to your desk.
That's not disposable. I guess it is a little bit. It's fun.
That wasn't disposable. I had a hoot doing that. It was hilarious.
I did have a hoot. Yes. Sometimes it's okay. When I do it, it's okay. That's
yes. Yeah, lots coming down the pipe. Lots of exciting stuff. We also are always listening to what you guys want. So leave us a comment down below, or send us a DM or an email, whatever ways possible. Love to hear what your thoughts are and what kind of stuff you want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. So I guess it's a good time to get into sick picks and shameless plugs, which again, we had these from the get-go. That was part of our initial plan, was to have sick picks and shameless plugs, even by
Pretty
name.
much from day one.
Yeah. So this has been a fun thing that we've been doing for a really long time here on Syntax. So again, sick picks are the things that we like, we're consuming, we're utilizing, all that stuff. I have a sick pick, which is something that CJ had mentioned that he had gotten. So shout out to CJ for letting me know that these existed nowadays. I haven't bought an external hard drive in a very long time. Like I had a NAS, I have that kind of thing for an external hard drive, but nothing that I could take with me. What I ended up getting was, the catalyst was this. I was doing a lot of video editing, and my cache files were like taking up like 600 gigabytes on my laptop, which would just, destroy my laptop's, space in about 2 seconds flat. So I got this 4 terabyte portable SSD. It's made by Crucial. It's itty bitty, and it's 4 terabytes. It has 2,000 megabyte read and write speed. So it uses Thunderbolt for fast writing, and it's just tiny. I'm going to put some Velcro on this and Velcro it to the back of my computer so I can take it with me. But it's shocking. 4 terabytes in this little thing. It's essentially a USB flash drive, and I just basically told DaVinci to throw all my cache files on it. Now I never have to worry about that again.
And you can edit right off of that? Like scratch disk off of that?
Yeah, I use scratch disk off of that. I think you could probably edit off of that as well, but I just haven't had the need to yet. That's
great. But at least once a week, I tell my wife, I'm like, I hate Apple. I have a freaking 2 terabyte MacBook, and like I bought my wife a new phone, and she had a 256 gig one, and like all of the apps on her phone are like, where they like do that soft uninstall.
I hate
and then
that.
every time, and she's just like, I can't have any more apps on my phone because I have no space for anything. And my kids' iPads are always out of space. And I was like, how is this in the year of 2025? How is this a thing where we're just running out of it? And they want you to do iCloud for $1,000 a month. It
iCloud
drives me
sucks.
nuts that it's so hard to get a lot of space on Apple devices.
Yeah.
And you have to literally tape a hard drive to the back of your laptop to make it work.
I was looking at Mac Studio because we're getting Randy a Mac Studio, and it's the upgrade price to internally move your internal storage from 1 terabyte on that thing to 4 terabytes is $1,000. $1,000. Crazy.
That's so silly. Yeah, I can't wait for the day that you can. I don't know if this will ever come. They want to charge you for like a cloud space or whatever. But like even already, I saw people are like hacking the Mac Studios, or what are those little square ones? Is that the studio?
Mac Mini.
Mac Mini, where like they are like making aftermarket drives for it.
Oh yeah.
Which, give me that. I don't want a desktop computer, but give me that for my laptop. 1,000 terabytes. I want something like that.
Yeah, I've been rethinking the I don't want a desktop computer thing. I don't know if I've talked to you about this.
No, tell me about it.
I think virtual desktops have gotten pretty decent. And like a Mac Studio is so much more powerful than a MacBook Pro. I was just thinking, like, when do I get my next MacBook Pro? Is it the next version? I think it probably is the next version. But what if I just kept this computer and did remote desktop into a Mac Pro that is beefy,
You're going to remote in? You think latency would not be a thing?
If I'm local, that wouldn't be too bad.
The thing with your laptop is that you want to be able to like bring it to a conference or bring it on an airplane or whatever and just have your stuff.
But when I need
think about it.
Heavier work, whether that is, work with LLMs locally or work with, video editing, processing, those types of things.
Yeah.
It feels like you could just offload that to a beefy
especially
machine.
if you did, you move all your coding projects to the cloud instead of doing them local. That might
a local
be
cloud.
Like, you can use VS Code as like a thin client and then it just does everything remotely.
And if I'm wired connection at home, it's not going to make a difference. The latency is not going to be a killer there.
No. At home, it wouldn't be an issue. Like if you're like sitting on the couch and you're trying to remote in, it's when you're like somewhere else. That's my thing. As I always just want to close the laptop and then put it in my bag and continue working. I do it all the time. I bring my daughter to dance. I sit in the parking lot for an hour.
I do that exact same thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And now I use the Vision Pro to have a giant monitor in the car, and all the other parents get to look at me funny.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah. Interesting. All right. Well, I'm going to stick pick. I might have even stick picked this years ago, but this is the best thing ever. Cordless glue gun. It doesn't matter which one. You can buy them third party now that fit your yellow or red batteries or whatever. This is just the Ryobi one. And man, having a glue gun that can't get kicked across the house, or like trying to glue gun something and you're like, you have to get an extension cord out. I hate that. So just having a glue gun that is on a battery is so key. We have two of them. This is the big one. And then we also have one of the smaller craft ones. And it's so good for kids because kids love glue guns. And you can just like put it on the table where they're working and you don't have to worry about them like running by and kicking it in this magma hot glue gun.
I remember burning myself so many times on a glue gun when I was a kid.
I do that all the time still as well.
Yeah,
I do
I'm sure.
quite a bit of glue gunning, but the only downside is it takes a little while to heat up, maybe 4 minutes or so. But once it's cooking, you're good.
I got a cordless soldering iron recently, and that was a value add for me. Because again, it take a little while to heat up, does not get as hot, definitely. But man, for me, not having to deal with a cable that I'm like,
Oh man, yeah. I've got two of them. So I have the TS80, I think. It's like USB powered one, and then you just hook it up to a battery. And then I also just got the Ryobi one, which is, I like the Ryobi one better, to be honest, because it has like a nice stand for it and it's much bigger. But if you're doing really fussy, tiny little stuff, I'll reach for the little USB powered one.
Sick.
All right, that's it for today. Make sure you check us out on YouTube, syntax.fm/, youtube.com/@syntaxfm. That's it. I always do them the backwards way.
Yeah.
Anything else to plug?
Nothing.
All
Check
right.
us out.
Peace.
Peace.